Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Hey, Jean, how you doing? Um, they just updated the interface here. I'm not sure if I like it, but it is what it is, right? You got to work with the interface that they give you. Hey, elusive man, how you doing, my friend? Um, I think it's interesting recently, and it kind of ties into today's topic. Hey, Carter, how's it going? And it kind of ties into today's topic, and that's lately there's been some fake watch companies spamming, literally spamming 10, 20, 30, 50 messages on just about all of the watch channels. I correspond with some channels, and I heard from Peter Katza that he had a bunch of them as well. And so basically, there's some, I'm not going to honor them by giving their name, but there's some spam maker who is a fake watchmaker. So I guess to go from being a pain in the butt and intruding upon your privacy and taking up my bandwidth and Peter Kotz's bandwidth and who knows how many other channels bandwidth, that's par for the course for a fake watch company because obviously if you're making fake watches, you don't have a lot of character. And fake watches are a serious problem in our industry, and it's not a healthy one, which ties into today's topic. And wristwatch check, case in point, complicated watches. Wearing my Breitling Navitimer GMT. And the number one reason in my book, well, I mean, I shouldn't say number one, tied at the top reasons for collecting complicated watches is they are hard to fake. I've seen a ton of very good three-hander fakes, like if you don't open it up, you can find a lot of good sub fakes. Now, once you open them up, then you can tell they're pieces of crap. But to make the outside of the case on a three-handed watch look good is not that difficult. Whereas if you look at something even as basic as a Value 7751 chrono moon phase calendar, right? You're not going to find very many fakes of this kind of watch. There are out there. They are out there. I've seen them, but they work pathetically because in order to fake a complicated watch, you have to make it complicated. Most of the fake complicated watches that I have seen have dummy faces and dummy windows and dummy hands. And the operative term there is dummy. So I guess they're hoping a dummy will buy this bad fake because there are better fakes out there that use Japanese and even some Swiss movements. Because if you're faking a $50,000 watch, then you might throw a Solita inside of it, and then you've got a Swiss movement inside of your fake Swiss watch, which is relatively easy to do when it's a three-hander. But fake a vertical clutch column wheel mono pusher GMT chronograph. Go ahead. I dare you. You're not That's why you see so few fake complicated watches and so many fake three-handers because it's just harder to fake a complication. I mean, if you think about something like the Silver Snoopy, right? The Silver Snoopy is very hard to get your hands on. Took me 3 years to get this one, and is worth roughly what a new sub is. But you find a lot of these fake. I haven't seen too many of these fake. And part of it is because, well, you're going to fake that too. You're going to fake the little spaceship moving across the back of the watch with the rotating Earth. If you could make a watch that good, put it out under your own name. So first and I wouldn't say foremost, but one of the big points about a fake, it's really hard to fake a complicated watch because it's more than just putting a lot of faces and dials and buttons on it. They need to work, right? Like, look at this Frederic Constant world timer. There are legitimate manufacturers who have trouble keeping up with this watch. All right. This watch you could buy for around 5K, 6K new, and it punches so far above its weight. The only watch I can think of for less than 10 that's even competition is the Aquaterra world timer. And that costs almost twice as much. So when you start seeing, fake world timers out there, then maybe you could say, hey, they're making some inroads in there. But another thing about complicated pieces, like this Zenith El Primero Chronomaster, right? Open heart. Yeah, go ahead and fake that escapement. You know, go ahead and fake that movement. It's easy to fake a watch with a plain steel back and three hands. It's really hard to fake a watch that shows you its homework. And that's part of the argument that I was making earlier about the accusations about Chinese made Swiss watches. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. All right. If the Chinese companies that can make watches this well are making their own brand watches, the fakes just don't have it when it comes to complications. So a complicated watch is hard to fake. Number two, like I said, in no order of preference, because number two, I think complicated watches look cool. I think they look awesome. I think they look beautiful. You get a watch and throw a complication on it, it makes it look more interesting. All right, here's a Santos chrono. You could buy as the day is long three-handed Cartiers, but I think the Santos chrono, because of the chrono complication, makes it a more interesting piece. You know, complicated watches have more going on, something to collect, something to talk about, give you a conversation piece in a bar. Ooh, I got a lot of comments. Let's scroll up and see what the comments are. Eric, hey, Eric, here to soak up the knowledge today. There you go, my friend. And hey, throw out some of your own. I'm always open for new information. The movement mensch, hey, hey, Alex is in the seat. How am I doing? I'm doing very well. I am doing very well. The magazine that I run we're going to get our issue dummy for the next issue this week, and we're on track for the next issue as well. And in publishing, if everything is on schedule, then the world is spinning the way it should. Interesting. Well, I live on deadlines, but I don't think I don't think about the watch being an aspect of that. I wear watches to enjoy horology. I'll let my phone calendar bother me about the work I need to do. But yeah, complicated watches are just, in my mind, interesting, beautiful, complicated. In fact, the term complicated in our language comes from complications in watches, because and for the longest time, people used to talk about complicated mechanisms as watchworks, clockworks. You opened up the doll and it was full of clockworks. See, elusive man. And I think I said hi, but hi again. Best to collect in a sense, more expensive to service. This is true. This is true, but some watches are more expensive to service, even if there's not a lot of complexity involved, And in the case of, say, a Value 7751, right? This watch, you could take this watch to any qualified watchmaker. You could buy parts for this movement everywhere. So complicated and rare, different story, but complicated and just complicated. I believe this is and I believe this IWC Sansupri GMT UTC is an ETA base, right? You don't have to go to the manufacturer to repair a watch with an ETA base or with a Salita base or whatever, because Those are watches those are movements whose parts are actually available on the open economy. And it's not just limited to chronographs. If I know own a lot of chronographs, but I really am partial to my Frederic Constant World Timer. And again, the World Timer gives it more interesting stuff going on. When you think about just having interesting stuff going on, and it also gives you a little story. Like you can explain to people what the Silver Snoopy actually is in the case, in the safety award sense. Or even back in the day, this is a 1970s vintage Walkman flyback chronograph. And it's a complicated piece, and flyback is an interesting additional complication on top of base chrono. And this is such an old piece. Well, I shouldn't say it's not because of its age, but in the 70s, you could get relatively inexpensive flybacks, and they had a separate reset switch for the totalizer hands because they would just run with the mechanism to save money. And so you would zero the totalizers, start the chrono, stop the chrono, and then reset the chrono. And then you could leave the totalizers where they are or reset them too if you're in the mood until the next time you use the watch. Or here's an interesting complication. This is an Omega alarm watch. This is the Memomatic. All right. And the inner dial is the alarm. Complicated watches have a story. If only the story of the complication, right? The Navitimer, complicated piece, chrono, and this one's the GMT, second time zone, and then it's got the slide rule on top. And if you know how to use a slide rule, you could do things like calculate tips and such on it, so it has real world purposes. Let's see. Hey, Warren checking in. The Longines is definitely a bang for the buck. I agree, elusive man. The that that movement, the Value 7751 moon phase calendar, can be found in a lot of watches. Some companies clean them up or at least order the highest level of them. Companies like Union, for example, you can get the same movement in the Union moon phase calendar, based on it at least. They may tweak it to a degree or not, but there are a lot of companies out there that offer a calendar. If you're looking at a calendar moon phase under 10,000, it's going to have almost certainly that Value 7751 in it, or a variation thereof. And it's that this Longines is a great value because, well, Longines makes nice watches, and Swatch is nice to Longines because, for example, the Master Collection version of this has a column wheel. This is cam, but the Master Collection version of this has a column wheel, and that's a fantastic deal because I don't believe anybody other than Longines has the 7751 with a column wheel. And if you know of a company that has that, let me know. But I believe Swatch lets it be exclusive to Longines, which I think is very cool. I just noticed there's a little groove right around the top of the crown, makes it easier to pull out. I should have noticed that before. But yeah, complicated watches also hold their value to a degree more than the given three-hander, if only because of the higher exclusivity level of the um, chrono version of the watch. Or in the case of, for example, I have it behind me, the PRX chrono. For those who think, the PRX is a nice watch, but they don't want to get the Powermatic 80 movement. If you get the PRX chrono, that's a Value 7753 in that one. It's got the horizontal totalizer layout, but it's a Value chrono movement inside that PRX chrono. And it retails for about 18 and change, and I think it's stable in the marketplace, used at around 13 or 14. I might be wrong. But a PRX Powermatic 80, you could pick them up for, half 50 cents on the dollar easy. Uh, Not that it's a bad watch, but you know, it's not. There's nothing special about it in the sense that it's just a good looking three hander. Nothing wrong with that. Whereas the PRX Chrono is a good looking chrono with a warhorse, highly respected, venerated at a movement in it, because I always thought that was because when people started talking about Chinese companies making movements for Swiss watch companies, and I'm like, not really. You might see Chinese companies making cases and bracelets and things of that nature, or maybe subcomponents, but you can't complain that that watch has got a Salida 200 in it and then say, well, it has a Chinese movement. No, you could go to Switzerland and see the factory where they're making those Salida movements. You can go to the ETA factory and see where they're making those ETA movements. Some of the bag and clothing companies that are being accused, I haven't seen many of them say, well, here's our factory in Milan, 10 floors of people working sewing machines. Rolex can show you 10 floors of people working goldsmith refineries, because Rolex has their own gold smelting, their metal refineries because they do their own metal refining. They can show you the facilities where they do their movement manufacture, and they can show you the facilities where they do their assembly and QC. Uh, so can company. I was in the Zin facility, and I've been in some other facilities in the marketplace. I've been to the Geneva Microelectronic Research Facility and seen the wafers where they're making the silicon hairsprings for the Swiss watches. So, yeah, it does go deeper. There are a lot of people who point fingers at certain aspects of the Swiss watch market, but if you're talking about a complicated piece, very little of that watch is made in China. I mean, like I said, maybe the case, um, but they almost certainly finish the cases themselves. Maybe the bracelet, but as you all know, I don't put a lot of value in the bracelet. I swap bracelets, you know, casually, because the watch is the important aspect. Now, there are companies that'll charge you an arm and a leg for a bracelet. The metal bracelet for my Snoopy wasn't cheap. But they definitely charge less for the Speedmaster bracelet than JLC charges for the metal bracelet for the three-hander Polaris, which is what, 2,200 euros for a metal bracelet. The Speedy's an 800 euro bracelet, but how much would a well-made bracelet cost even direct out of China? 300, 400. So you're overpaying in potential cases, but they're talking, when you talk about a complicated watch that's worth 50,000 euros, I doubt there's anything in there that's made in China. You know, I don't own a $50,000 complicated piece, but I do own a silver Snoopy, right? And as I was pointing out, if you can make that little spaceship fly across the back, if you got that kind of watchmaking chops, you should make your own watches. But then again, I haven't seen too many fake silver Snoopies. I've actually seen fake Sky Dwellers, which are an annual calendar, but usually either that little month pip is freewheeling on the bezel, which is useless, or it's a fixed pip, because I've seen a couple of fakes and they go about it in different ways. But I have yet to see a fake Sky Dweller that is both a GMT and an annual calendar. Not yet. And if you can show me a legitimate, I mean, just a video, or well, I'd need to see a video because I'd need to see the functions operating as you move the hands and the crown. I mean, the bezel, it's a bezel shifting movement in the Sky Dweller. Um, I'll make a whole episode dedicated to you and talk about your interests and your website and all kinds of stuff, and of course the watch. But I haven't seen a functional fake Sky Dweller yet. It's easy to make a fake complicated watch with a lot of fake subdials and hands, but to make it work takes work, you know? Um, let's see. Oh, wow, I had to scroll so much up. I love it. Elusive Man, I'm glad you like my watches. The Mont Blanc, I really do like the Mont Blanc. Movement Mensch, love how the Mont Blanc looks like a skull. Now I can't unsee it. The Mont Blanc has a little bit of, I guess you can see a little bit of skeletal going on in there. You could also look at it as like a beetle with the clock on its back and the subdials are eyes and the mandibles of that bridge. You can see a lot of patterns in a nice watch. Oh, Kevin. Hey, how's it going, Kevin from Florida? Greetings from Wiesbaden, Germany. Gian, by the way, I have a question. How do watch shops maintain the automatic watches? Example, if there's a watch unsold for 5 years already, is it a still good buy or not? If it's a used watch, I would just have it. If the watch has not been serviced, but it just sits there, nothing will happen to it if it continues to sit there. But if it's say, for example, a used watch, I did a whole episode on that and talked about it. If that watch has been sitting on a shelf for 5 years and it's a vintage piece, like something made before the turn of the century, which is already over 25 years ago now, if you think about it, I would have it just cleaned and oiled. That way, that any issue of old lubricants is gone, and to have it cleaned and oiled is not a major service. And if you have it cleaned and oiled when you buy a used piece, you should almost make it, something that you do on a regular basis if you're into buying used pieces. Um, a new piece hasn't well, first off, a new piece, the oils in it, the lubricants in it are far longer lasting and way more stable. So you can get away with 10 years on a. I mean, I've looked at some watchmaker forums, and uh, even with the modern lubricants, I still see suggestions of 6 to 8 years. But you can, if the watch has been sitting on the shelf for that long, and it's a new watch, something made in the last decade or so, you don't have to worry too much about those lubricants drying up inside. But if it's a vintage piece, something from like the 90s or 80s or 70s, even, um, wouldn't hurt to have it cleaned and oiled. Or you can wear it and keep an eye on it with your time grapher, and the moment the amplitude drops or the beat error changes, take it in. But then why tempt the devil? If it starts to act up, the damage might already be done. You know, Factor in the cost of a service into any used watch purchase you make. I always do. And I have often had to have a used watch serviced right after I bought it, either because there was some other issue with it, or I wanted to make sure that it was in good shape to run for the long haul, as it were. But a, n- a new watch that's sitting on the shelf, I wouldn't worry about too much. A used watch that's been sitting on the shelf, I would make sure that the watch shop gave me at least a 1 year guarantee on it, and ask them if, hey, would you do a quick cleaning and oiling, and we'll split the cost or something. But yeah, old watch, it's a concern. New watch, I wouldn't worry about it. Movement Mensch, if they have stock sitting for 5 years, they have bigger problems. That's also very true. That's a great point, Movement Mensch. Arthur, hey Arthur, leather strap looks fantastic on the suit piece. Sartipi doesn't disappoint. No, and I don't know if you've heard me talking. I like the way that the stitching is just slightly lighter, and this is his line that was designed to work with the Omega deployment buckle, and he had this in on hand. It is his work. He even says Sartipi on the inside, and it says genuine on this side, so I guess it's genuine Sartipi. But I actually was thinking about getting something much more flamboyant, and he talked me, I was, like Python or something like that, because he's got some really nice samples of leather there. But he talked me into just a cardigan, clean, hard blue leather, and I'm glad he did, because I think it does work so well. so well with the watch, you know. Um, I do like the metal bracelet that I got for it, but I do like this, leather strap as well. Although, now that I have it, I don't wanna wear it out, so I'll probably wear it until it's nicely broken in and then put the metal bracelet back on it until I have a reason to wear the leather strap again, like with a suit. Because I wouldn't wear, if there are some watches I wear with, metal bracelets with a suit, sometimes because I don't have an alternative bracelet, and sometimes because they're pretty much made to work metal bracelet and suit. This is one of my favorite suit pieces, and for my size hand, this is a 36. It works best with a suit because it's okay if your suit watch is a little smaller and, discreet, so I've got the oyster quartz here, two-tone, and it's actually a very nice, suit piece, and, it has its own interesting story. Uh, I'll talk about it another time, but I deliberately put the display back on it so you can see that it is a hybrid electromechanical movement. It is not your standard. It's not your standard quartz movement. It's a hybrid movement. A quartz controlled, temperature compensated motor drives an 11 joule escapement that runs the hands. That tick tock is actually caused by a jeweled pallet fork, you know, in the oyster quartz. It's a hybrid electromechanical movement. I think well, a lot of people think it's cool, but I think it's cool, which in one sense is complicated, right? It's not just your average three hander, you know. Complicated watches, as I was saying, they have one of the another reason to collect them is they almost always have a story of some kind to tell, and I love watches that have stories to tell. That's one of the reasons I collect watches. The Breitling Navitimer has a lovely story of history and aviation and engineering and just all in all good looks too, because it's a really nice watch. And it's hard to fake. I have my number one video on this channel is me comparing this to a fake Breitling, and the GMT was on a subdial, whereas obviously, on this one, it's center GMT, and this is an office GMT. The GMT hand is independently settable, not the hour hand. But the Breitling is one of the few that people would say, "Well, it's a pilot's watch. Why isn't it a flyer's GMT?" In the case of the Navitimer, I forgive it for being in an office GMT because a pilot would keep the GMT hand on GMT time, you see. So, they would not normally change the time when they were flying. But then again, you can say, well, when they get where they're going, they've got to reset and all. But yeah, I don't, like I said, in the case of the Navitimer, I don't ding it too badly for being an office GMT as opposed to a travel GMT because the nature of the user is not the same philosophy. Although I'll counterpoint myself. The IWC is a pilot, and it is a true travel GMT. The hour hand is independently settable. So, and they get all high and mighty and go UTC instead of GMT for universal time, being all cute with the acronyms. So, but again, uh, in order to make a fake true travel GMT, you'd have to, at the minimum, get a Miyota movement and buy it and put it in there because at least the Miyota movement's a true travel GMT, and it's cheaper than whatever Swiss movement you would be faking. But at least you'd get a decent watch, which is part of the irony. Some of the highest end fakes use good movements, have good fit and finish. They should literally put their own name on it and sell it as a different brand, or at least as a high-end homage. Makes you wonder but then again, any self-respecting homage company, since they're their own manufacturer, wouldn't want to get into the fake business because the fake business is admittedly criminal. Identity theft and smuggling and all that other good stuff. Because fake watches don't go through the regular supply chain, right? So those fake watches came in on that same smuggling shipment with drugs or whatever, because it's part of the underground economy. So whenever someone buys a fake watch, they're not just buying that fake watch, they're supporting the criminal infrastructure that supports a black market supply chain. But I rail on that way too much, I'm realizing. Or maybe not too much, but I'm recognizing that I'm sensitized to it. But you'd be surprised how many mail notes I get, how many comments I get on my videos. I get easy a couple a week defending fakes. So I guess there is a big uh, desire out there to both buy and discuss. But okay, hey, oh Robert, hey, how's it going, my friend? Arthur, Longines is such an underrated brand. Agreed. I absolutely love the Hydro Conquest and Zulu lines, especially. And to combine the two, get the Hydro Conquest GMT. I'm I really wouldn't mind getting my hands on one of those, but I have too many watches right now, and I'd have to sell a couple of pieces. So, like for example, if I sold this one, the moon phase calendar, I would replace it with another Longines, the GMT Hydro Conquest. But I love this moon phase calendar. It's the only moon phase I have in my collection currently, and I do like it. And what I really like about it, because I've owned the Master Collection, but the Master Collection is a beautiful piece. It is more beautiful than that. It has a bigger face. It's a nicer dress watch, but it's not as good of a daily wear because it is a suit watch case design, not as rugged, and all the hands are shiny polished steel. It takes a second to recognize which are the hour and minute hands. Whereas in the Conquest, the hour and minute hands are loomed, so you, even though there's a lot going on this face, you could see the time at a glance. And it's a daily wear. It's the sports watch, not the dress watch variation. And well, they save you a little money. They put the column. There's no column wheel in this one. The Master Collection gets the column wheel. This one has the cam version, but there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And if you're not going to do complicated, at least do pretty, right? Because I call this one my mullet watch because it's completely the nomos. It's completely business in the front and it's completely party in the back. Party in the back. That is a beautiful movement. Deutsche Uhrenwerk in-house. See, isn't that a beautiful piece? So this one's not complicated, but I like it. But yeah, complexity, it gives the watch, a little bit of a difference to it. It gives you something to talk about. It's interesting to look at and operate. It's harder to fake. There are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons to enjoy and collect complicated pieces. And I understand there are people who don't like busy watches. Then that's when you get like the interesting complications like perpetual calendar uh, that have minimalist facial designs. Like Moser makes one that looks like but it's a perpetual calendar. There are a couple of other companies who do something along those lines, or get a tourbillon. Although now with the Chinese tourbillons, you see a lot of inexpensive tourbillons. But if you notice, you don't see a lot of fake tourbillons because the tourbillon in the higher end pieces are very distinguished. And sometimes they'll even incorporate the company's logo into the tourbillon cage. And that's where you get to the point where it gets too complicated or too expensive to fake, because that Chinese tourbillon is a tourbillon, but you're to build that same tourbillon with a tourbillon cage with, Arnold and Son in it or something like that. That's a different issue entirely. So if you're into three handers and you want complications, get a minute repeater. Those are fantastic pieces. I only have a pocket watch repeater myself. I would love to get my hands on a minute repeater, but that's a level of expense I'm not prepared to go out for. Although I heard that Seagull's going to make one, Chinese company, but they're going to put their own name on it. I heard that they're going to come out with a chiming. It might be a sonnery like the Christopher Ward. A sonnery is one that just rings every hour. A repeater, when you push the lever or the button, it actually tolls the hours, as it were. It tolls the hours, then it tolls for the quarter hour, and then some stop there. They're quarter repeaters, and then some do the hours, the quarter hours, and then the individual minutes. And the reason they do the quarter hours and then the minutes is you don't want it to bang 59 times for 11:59. So it bangs 11 times. That would be like the longest you'd have to hear the chime. So it would bang 11 times for 11. It would bang 4 times for the fourth quarter, and then it would bang 14 times for the 59, um, which is a lot of ringing if you think about it, which is, I guess, why they did the shorthand on the quarter hours. But you could get a repeater, and that would be a very complicated watch without a complicated face. So there are complications, things that you can put on a watch that make it different and interesting and hard to fake, without getting too busy. Like, for example, later I had an interview with the CEO of Laterer Watches. Reinhardt, I believe is his name. And take a look at the interview. We have a really great discussion about escapements, and he's got double remontoirs in his watch. And a remontoire is a constant force escapement mechanism that uh, has a small drive spring that is constantly wound by the mainspring. So the escapement always sees the same energy from that drive spring. And he's got, in some of his models, two remontoirs that are handing off to each other every 5 seconds, or not handing off, but are resetting every 5 seconds or so. So you can have incredibly complicated watches that don't look complicated because the complications are inside. Or you can get a three-hander with a moon phase. Moon phase is a beautiful complication. And of course, because fakes are usually cheap, I've rarely seen. I have seen some functional fake moon phase watches, but most of the fakes that I've seen that are moon phase aren't functional moon phases. And like as I say, there are multiple reasons to own a complicated watch like that because number two, moon phase is an attractive complication. I mean, there's a moon phase in the bottom of this piece, this Longines. Let's see. Oops, I'm overwinding the date here. I need to pull it out all the way. And then we pull it out some of the way. And you can get the moon phase. There we go. So here we go. Now we got the moon phase running on this piece. So you see the disk of the moon going across. It's at the 6 o'clock position window. Here it's coming up again. Moon phase. See the little shiny gold disc. And it sets. And now, and you can get them, and you can even get one from Longines. You can get a three-hander moon phase, so that the moon phase is the only additional complication on the watch. And frankly, moon phase three-hander dress watches are beautiful. They look really nice. I mean, look at a JLC Master Thin moon, just a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. And moon phase is a complication that doesn't really apply in today's world. Even if you are a farmer, um, but moon phase is an elegant complication that doesn't really. I mean, it's like I said, it's not that it's important that we know what phase the moon is, but it's an elegant thing to know, and it's a cute thing to show. Well, or elegant, depending on the kind of watch, and a fun complication. So there are a lot of ways to have a complication. It doesn't just have to be a chronograph to have a complicated piece, although chronograph is what a lot of people leap to when they think of complications. Um, and ironically, chronos are actually relatively difficult to make, but they're so popular that everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but most companies offer them. So let's see. Making mystery. Hey, how's it going, Kevin from Pasadena? Hello from Wiesbaden. I've not joined live much late, but always watch after. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Kevin. Junior Johnson, haven't seen you in a while. Glad to see you, my friend. Take the curse off the washing machine. Ditto, my friend. Nice to see you. Complicated watches are definitely something I admire mechanically, but when it comes to my own preferences, I tend to favor simplicity of design language, which tends to push me towards three hands. Well, that's why I was saying about, maybe just go for a moon phase or a repeater, right? They're complicated, but they're not busy complications. Repeater, definitely not, because you can get a three-hander repeater, no problem, even with a closed face. Um, but a moon phase, I don't know. Moon phase, I think, has a simplicity of design language as well, and it's a nice complication to look at. Uh, Movement mensch, me too. Making history. Glad to see SoCal represented. Oh, Gian, lots of YouTube channels already said Tudor is partly made in China. What parts? Tudor has a movement factory they share with other companies. So I would be confident that the movement, at least, is original Tudor. Like I said, when it comes to things like cases and bracelets, that's milled metal. I would prefer that it maybe came directly from the company, but when you think to say Swiss made, 60% has to be made. The value, 60% of the value has to be from Switzerland. If all they did was make the movement, assemble it, and assemble it with the case that they procured elsewhere and did the QC on it, I would consider that a worthwhile value for what you're paying. If you think about a modern Tudor costs about $5,000, adjusted for inflation and the like, back in the old days in the 70s, that's not much more expensive than any other mainstream watches were back in the day. That $500-$600 watch back in the 70s. So yeah, there is going to be a brouhaha over this whole Chinese thing. And I said I had other episodes, live streams where I talked about it. And I do believe that one way they could address that is just simply increase the requirement to 75% in order to maintain the Swiss appellation. And then that would clear a lot of the junk off the decks. Um, it would hit some of the micro brands the hardest, though, I imagine, not the main established brands, because the main established brands, I would say this, I would say the Tudor's probably closer to 75% in-house value anyway. They probably do get stuff from outside of the company, but none of the stuff that provides the significant value add, as it were. But I'm curious to see what, because I've been looking at some of the commentaries, and as soon as somebody makes a valid accusation, I will totally be behind it. But so far I haven't seen any valid accusations yet on specific products or companies. And until I see specific accusations, I'm going to take everything with a big grain of salt, because like I said, Tudor will show you the factory. And so even if all they're doing is assembly, you can see the people they're assembling and doing QC. Um, there's a reason they can offer a guarantee with that watch. They didn't just slap the pieces together. They also, tested it and qualified it and made sure that it's operating to their standards. And as I said, in the case of the movement, that's pretty easy to verify, because they share that movement factory with other companies. And it's not easy. It can be done, but a conspiracy on that level for something that insignificant is not in the cards for me, as it were. But I'm open to see some serious allegations with some real facts behind them. I would pay attention to that. But so far, all I've heard are accusations. And from my own personal experience in the industry, I've seen factories. I've talked to watchmakers. Um, it's harder to fake a precision instrument like a watch than it is to fake a bag. Not to insult bag makers, but then again, a sewing machine is a machine, so that bag is machine finished. You know, um, Once you're talking about the higher end Swiss watches, they're hand finished, and that is worth something. Watch Chris. Hey, how's it going, my friend? Elusive man. I'm a bracelet guy. In fact, I'm not in love with my Longines Zulu because I hate the bracelet for it. Well, get a custom strap over at Sartipi. Come visit me here. I'll let you sleep on my couch. We go to Dusseldorf and buy you some custom something from Sartipi. Or what I always do if I don't like the metal bracelet or the leather band on a watch is sometimes I'll go with a Milanese because Milanese is popular and generic. You know, you can get a Milanese on a brand new Breitling or you can get a Milanese on a brand new Omega. And you can get a Milanese pretty much in any lug width, even the odd ones. And so, yeah, give a Milanese a try. If you like metal, but you don't like the factory metal, or a custom leather strap, or even a high-end non-custom, just a nice high-end, leather, like just a blue alligator off the shelf. It's gonna cost you 2 to 300 bucks for an off-the-shelf blue alligator, but you may like the way it looks, or black or green or whatever color you like for your watch. Me, I'm partial to blue. In fact, this one is an aftermarket blue alligator that I wear on my upside down El Primero Chronomaster. This one comes with a black alligator, but I wanted the blue to dress it down a little without losing class. So the blue suits the dial better, in my humble opinion, and makes it look a little sportier, but it still looks classy. So play with straps, have some fun with straps. In fact, I'm definitely going to do a fun with straps episode on this with not just the metal, leather, and sailcloth, but also some NATOs and my tactical strap and some other stuff too. Why not? Oh, the movement mensch spent the last 20 years in Pasadena, now in Long Beach. Oh, there you go. Arthur Morgan, how's it going? I think I said hi, but never hurts to say hi twice if you're not sure. Absolutely, proper Swiss watches are bulletproof Swiss. The notion that they're anything like the luxury bags and clothes are and such made in China, but labeled otherwise is ridiculously wrong. Exactly, because this is an industry where, I mean, we've been harassing companies about where their movement came from and who made their stuff before this was an issue. The watch industry, watch collecting community, they care about that stuff. They care about it passionately, and they self-police to a very high degree. Like I said, there have been scandals about manufacturing in the watch industry prior to this brouhaha, and they almost always sort themselves out. Sometimes the companies had real trouble, but they always sort themselves out. Panorama back after they went through a tremendous travail uh, over who's making their watches. They're making them too easy, that they're easy to copy. They're not doing enough QC, things of that nature. And Panerai tightened up and moved forward, and now they're more respected than they were. You know, some would say they're back. Some would say they're on their way back, but they're definitely on their way back because they're better than they were. And that wasn't because some China manufacturer said j'accuse. It was because the watch community said we don't like this. So yeah, I'll when I see a valid argument against a Swiss watch manufacturer from a Chinese company, I'll listen. But so far, all I've heard are accusations. I'm with you. So Gian saying hi to everybody. There we go. Wow, we got a good. I always when I have to scroll and I over scroll because I have so many comments. I always love it when we have a lot of comments because that's the purpose of this channel is to have a conversation. Making Ristery. I realize we're talking about complicated watches today, but I just welcomed the Tudor Black Bay Ceramic V-Carb Blue Dial into my collection. Definitely the opposite of complicated. Well, materials you could look at as maybe not complicated, but as different, and a nice ceramic case is relatively hard to fake. I haven't seen too many fake ceramic cased watches out of, well, anywhere yet. I think with ceramic, it's, I mean, it's both hard and fragile. It's tough and brittle in some cases. You have to be careful how you manufacture it and machine it and all that other good stuff. So, yeah, ceramic's special too. Oscar, good evening. Arthur, the Chinese can fake some basic high-end movements very well, but yeah, those more complicated pieces can't possibly be faked yet. And the thing is, once they get to the point where they're that good, they might as well make a watch with put their own name on it. And there are some Chinese watch companies that are doing a great job of that, you know? In fact, the Blue Planet, Sega Design's Blue Planet 2 years ago won the Swiss Horological Award, you know? You can put your own name on a Chinese product and get respect in the Swiss watch community. The movement Mints just got the Tudor Black Bay 58 GMT, which is fairly well, like I said, GMT is a great complication. GMT is a cool complication, and it's even in today's world, a useful complication. Whether you travel or you just work with international people from home, a GMT watch is useful because it can tell you 2 time zones. And I recognize a phone can do that as well, but what's the fun in that? Gian, it does have a skull look in it. Hey, Hippo Lord, nice to see you. Junior Johnson, I think some of the French watches use Chinese parts. Could be, you know. When you think about like if I think a company like Baltic, right? I believe they're French. They're a micro brand. So some of the parts they're buying are almost certainly going to have some Chinese in it. But and in the case of the Baltic, they're buying Chinese movements. They announced their micro rotor is a Chinese made micro rotor. They're not hiding the origin of their Chinese parts. I think that's the issue is the companies that are buying Chinese and not telling us that there are Chinese parts in them. Baltic does tell us that there are Chinese parts in them, you know? And in the case of other companies that are Swiss micro brands, they say if they have Solitas or whatever. Then that's the nice thing about being a micro brand. You don't get a lot of, you can say what you're made of as long as you pass those savings on to the customer. And at least in the case of Baltic and some of those other companies, they do. uh, Gian, I'm a new and unworn watch, right? Oh yeah, so a new and unworn watch can sit on the shelf for quite a long time because it's never been moved, right? Or maybe moved a little for burn-in or certification or whatever. But it's not like it was a watch that was worn for 5 years and then it's been sitting on the shelf for 5 years, and so you wanna make sure that those oils are still in good shape. If it's a new watch, it's probably not even really been broken in yet, depending on, the age of the watch and the type of watch it is and all. Um, but if a new watch has been sitting on the shelf for a while, don't the new watches, I wouldn't worry about it because also, as I was saying, the lubricants in a new watch are much more stable and have much longer shelf lives because that's the biggest worry of the lubricants. But in a new watch, that's not a case. That's not a worry. And as was pointed out, if they've got a watch sitting on the shelf for 5 years, they have bigger issues than age on the watch. Oh, Eric. Hey, how's it going, Eric? I've never caught you live. Oh, I'm glad you're here as well. Gian, fake watches are like owning a red Mazda Miata, putting a prancing horse sticker on it, and then calling that Miata a Ferrari. Probably closer to buying. I mean, there are people who do that, but when Pontiac had a mid-engine car. Pontiac had a mid-engine car, and there were companies that made Ferrari kits for that car. Fiero, it was the Fiero, the Pontiac Fiero, since it was mid-engine, it could fool people who knew a little bit about cars, but not a lot about cars. Whereas someone who knows a little bit about cars wouldn't be fooled by a Miata, a rebadged Miata, but someone who knew a little bit about cars could be fooled by a kit car Ferrari Fiero, and they were actually quite popular for a while. Uh, weren't Ferraris, but I agree with your point. Arthur, there's such a weird and toxic fascination with fake watches. Unfortunately, even the highest end ones with Solitas and successful clone movements break in a few years. They're built with slave labor. Well, even if it's not slave labor, it's labor that doesn't care. Minimum wage labor, uh, conscript labor, which is pretty much slave labor. But there's no QC. So they buy the Solita, they slap it in a case, but they don't take the time to dial it in or, break it in or run it on a time grapher and certify it. They're just putting together pieces and shipping them out the door. Yeah, it's a weird, it is weird and toxic. But what it is these are people, they're bought by people who resent the luxury companies for being so expensive, and I can understand where that comes from. Uh, I couldn't afford a fancy watch until I was well into my adult years. Um, and I can understand how someone can be bitter about the whole luxury marketplace. But watches at least are a little more honest. Yes, you have an overpriced three-hander in our marketplace, but you also have an underpriced gem, horological gem in our marketplace. That's the nice thing about an industry that's built on mechanical excellence as opposed to just straight up fashion. Because for the Rolex, for all the slings and arrows, there's a reason why they make their own steel and they make their own parts and they make their own gold and they have their own jewelers to set the gems, because Rolex is not high horology. Rolex is flawless product. You buy a Rolex. This is one of the few watches in my collection I get in the shower with and I don't worry about. And I mean, almost all of these are higher end pieces with some decent water resistance. But the two watches I get in the shower and I don't worry about is the Nomos and the Roly. Um, you buy this watch and you expect it to work, look good, and not break for the foreseeable future. Flawless operation. That's what you're paying for with the Rolex. Flawless looks, clean. Part of it is because they were the first to do a lot of these looks. And so they managed to get away with making such a basic look that if you even make a similar basic look, you could be accused of copying their design, where in reality you weren't. But their design is so basic, you can accidentally wind up looking like them just trying to be basic yourself. Let's see, Gian, I myself don't like busy watches. I don't even like a watch with a date on it. Well, then like I was saying, get a three-hander that's complicated in another way, you know, even if that complication is just really high-end finishing. Well, that's not really a complication, but you know what I mean. Trap Vision, hey, hey. Butters, hey, nice to see you, my friend. M. Haven, nice to see you. Is 5K a good price for a 93 36 millimeter date just two-tone? Yeah, that's a good price. That's a good price because a steel 36 date just is between 3 and 4. So the two-tone in good shape, right? If it's a Jubilee, check the bracelet droop. Oysters don't have that issue as much, but they could be a little worn. But Jubilees can be pretty worn. Check the bracelet for droop, how much droop. There's no real marker for how much droop is acceptable. It's how much you accept. But yeah, hold it sideways and see how much the bracelet hangs from horizontal, and that gives you an idea how much slack is in the links. But 5K is not. I would try to Presbyterian him down to 4.5, 475. Never hurts. I mean, but 5 isn't a bad price for it, especially if it's box and papers, or even box isn't that important. Papers are important. Or if he's willing to, first off, if it's a shop, I would say, hey, pop the back. I want to look at the movement and make sure that it's a free sprung balance. And then, it's real. Smack Daddy, nice to see you, my friend. Good morning from Australia. Good morning or good evening from Germany. Elusive Man, would they make the strap just to be adjustable to the factory clasp? Yes. Sartipi actually had a whole line of straps that were already cut to fit the omega deployant. So I was able to walk in and out with this strap, and it was already made to fit. And if he doesn't want to have, well, any custom strap shop, if they don't have one to fit, they'll just measure the width on your buckle, measure your lug width, and cut a strap to fit. That's the nice thing about a custom leather strap. It can be cut, or cloth, I guess, would work as well. But yeah, you can definitely have an aftermarket leather strap made to fit the factory metal, and then you have factory metal on your watch, because you can't expect factory leather on a watch because leather rots, but you can expect a factory buckle on a watch. And so if you have a custom strap can be made to fit your buckle and your lug width, no problem. Let's see. Aditya, hi, how's it going, my friend? Hey, everybody, missed the last two lives. I was wondering what watches have beautifully finished movements under 5K euros, except Nomos. Longines. Longines has some nice movements under 5K that are nicely finished. Absolutely love everything about them, but the lug length. They do have really long lugs. Um, you can buy this used for about 5, and this has a gorgeous, gorgeous, movement, right? I think I showed it earlier, but I'll show it again. It's such a pretty movement. Look at that movement. Look at that movement. That is a gorgeous movement, and it's a vertical clutch. It's a vertical clutch column wheel mono pusher GMT chronograph. How's that for a collection? And a partridge in a pear tree. A collection of functionality, and it's a tremendous buy because Mont Blanc, um, they're still struggling to gain more respect. Ever since they were given Minerva by LVMH, and Minerva makes their highest end, the movements in their highest end pieces, they've gotten a lot more respect. But when they made this one, this was their first in-house movement. They really swung for the fences and succeeded, in my humble opinion. And you can pick, if you shop around, you can probably pick up one for less than 5. And that's got a gorgeous movement in it. But Longines, they're another good company. Frederic Constant, look at that movement. Is that not a pretty movement? It's a beautiful watch. And Frederic Constant, theirs is machine finished, not hand finished, but that's how you can buy a beautiful. It's actually a Patek homage. It doesn't have a guilloche center. It's got that map in the center, but it's basically a Patek homage, and it's machine finished, and you can get it for about 5K new. And it's the best world timer under 10K you can buy, except maybe the Aquaterra world timer. It depends on your taste, I guess, on the appearance, because the some people like it, some people don't. But yeah, you can buy some good watches with really nice movements for 5K and under. Stan, hey, how's it going? This is what I was saying about Rolex last episode or last series, SRE stream. Yes. Yeah, well, that's the thing is, and Rolex will show you their factory. Let's see. Steely Dan. Hey, how's it going, Steely? What about the Glashütte rule? Isn't it 50%? That I do not know. But it wouldn't be Glashütte's rule. Well, the name of the town on the watch. But if it's to say German made, that would have to come from federal regulation. That's something I will look up, for the percentages in the German made from the German government, because they have their own trade requirements, and Glashütte for the town. I think it might be as simple as you have to have, a facility in Glashütte where you do final assembly, and that could bring you could get away with bringing in other stuff. But then there are some, like I said, like Zinn. Zinn's out of Frankfurt. They buy Swiss movements. They do a lot of ETA movements in their pieces. But I've been to the facility where they assemble and do QC and the like, and do the oil filling and the tegimentation, the hardening treatment for the case and all of that other. So, like in the case of Zinn, even if they got those steel cases from China, the tegumentation hardening process is done in house. You know, so I'll look into that on the Glashütte in German. That's an interesting question. Thanks for bringing it up. Oh, we're after the top of the hour. So let me take a quick look at the comments, answer them, and then I hate to say it, gonna bail and call it a day until next week. So let's see. Aditya, in other news, I'm selling about 10 cheap vintages for a Zin 104. Good idea. Zin 104 is a great piece. Stan, again, get this. I'm ordering tomorrow an Orient 46941 movement to drop in a Mint 71 Wittenauer perpetual calendar. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Let me know how it turns out. Take some pictures. I'll post them. Yeah. Hey, Stan never had a Rolex, but never felt it as disproportionate lug length. Well, the Nomoses do have humongously long lugs. It works with the Neomatic and the others that have fitted metal bracelets, because then you don't really notice the lug. But these do have comically long lugs. I'll give you that. Well, I'm holding up my Longines. You can even see between the two, the Nomos has even longer lugs than the Longines. The Neomatic, it's got humongous lugs, but the metal bracelet, like I said, makes up for a lot of it. Oh, let's see. And he's so excited. Great. Send some pictures. Milad. Hey, how's it going, Milad? I forget if I said hello. About fake watches. Aren't the luxury watch brands partly to blame with their unbelievably expensive prices? Well, yeah, yes and no. It's the luxury market. They're going to charge what people are willing to pay. And it is a capitalist economy, which means, you sell for what the market is willing to bear and decides what the value of those products are. Um, Now, in the case of like Rolex, for example, people are always accusing them of being overpriced, but people still buy them because uh, I'll admit this is an overpriced piece, right? But you're paying for more than the watch in this case because in the case of luxury products, there is an identity there. And in the case of the Rolex, it is a flawlessly made piece. It is a bulletproof watch. So, um, and what is expensive? Is 5,000 expensive? Is 10,000 expensive? You can buy a lot of Swiss watches for 5K, you know, if only used. I forget what this is new, but I don't think they make this one currently. But you can get the new Hydro Conquest GMT for under 5K. So what is expensive? And I would suggest buy the value Swiss brands or German brands like Nomos and Longines and Frederic Constant, and avoid the overpriced brands. Um, Part of the reason I have a sub is because it shuts up the people who say I don't have a sub. So which I don't even own it to impress anyone. I'm owning it to shut people up. Oh, but I do enjoy owning it. I do enjoy owning it, but I enjoy my Breitling more in a lot of ways. I enjoy my Silver Snoopy more. Now, in the case of the Silver Snoopy, this watch I would say is probably worth a lot of what they're charging for it because it's highly complicated. The whole thing with the spaceship, the time it was going by just as I opened the back. That took some effort. That took some effort. So I can appreciate the cost of this piece more than I can appreciate the cost of the Rolex. That's for sure. But expensive is relative, and there are inexpensive Swiss pieces out there that are well made. We're closing out. We're closing the show. Come on. I don't believe anybody here. Elusive man, they make silk cloth or rubber. I'm not sure about soft technique. I'll post his info in a post about my repost this picture. His contact info in it. So if anybody wants to complain it. I think, yeah, in my opinion, part of the problem is people buy fake watches just to look rich. Agreed. I think it's because they don't know how expensive quality really is. Market delivers to the brand, unfortunately. Agreed. They never consider they're totally worth looking into. Ball breaker down. Oscar, I recommend 36 6 for a man and 6 to 20 with 8-inch wrists. No, no, unless you're wearing a tuxedo. The small watches work with suits in that. Watch with a suit. But if you're wearing 36 is too small for that. I mean, I'm 226 too. And I'm wrist I got 7.5 now. 8-inch, I think 7.5. I've lost some weight. I gotta remeasure. But this is my only 36, and I wear it with a suit. Sometimes I wear polo shirt, sunny day. But then, I am trying to be a little bit more casual, low key, as opposed to wearing something humongous like this. So, how long are the lugs on that Nomos? At a glance, I would say 7, 8 millimeters. I mean, they're really long ass lugs, but they're hidden well because, in this case, because of the bracelet almost makes it look integrated. I'll measure it. Maybe I'll do a follow-up review of it, because I realize I haven't done those after X years follow-ups on some of these watches I've owned for several years. So I'll do the follow-up on the Nomos, and I'll talk about the lug length on that one, because I've talked about the lug length, but I've never actually measured the lug length. We'll do that. Okay. Enough to keep me off the beauties. I, Will Whitnauer reached out to Orient for the watch that year to make their watch for Whitnauer. Nice. What, audio problems with me? What, I'm having some noise? Could be a connection. Uh-oh. The audio has problems. I didn't do anything. I obviously didn't touch anything. Audio check. Huh. Mic problems. Mic's okay now. Yeah, it had to have been connection. Oh well. Look at all the comments now and we'll get confused. Well, actually, the audio fixed up just in time for me to call it an end to the episode. We actually ran past the top of the hour, and as you know, I like to keep it relatively short. An hour is long enough for a chat weekly. We will pick up again next Sunday. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and especially I hope you have a fantastic evening. But yeah, it must have been a connection thing with the audio. My apologies, everybody. Take care now.